Okay. Thank you and good morning and welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of the 19th of August 2021. The meeting it's now 9:07 and I apologise for the delay. We've had some issues connecting to YouTube, so at the moment I don't believe we're live, but we are recording it and it will be uploaded, so we've tried to do that. I'll also start off by just going through the health directive from the Chief Health Officer in regards to face masks today. So everyone in the whole room is required to wear a face mask at all times, unless they have an exemption. But under sections 14 and 15 of the Chief Health Officer direction, a face mask requirement does not apply if the nature of the person's work means that clear enunciation or visibility of the mouth is essential. And the example is given to live broadcasting. So today when you're speaking, if you wish to keep your mask on, you can, but you are also allowed to remove it while you are speaking. But you're also asked to put it back on when you're not speaking. So I'll leave that up to the discretion of each of the councillors. I'll mark the attendance, and we have full attendance this morning. And we'll go straight to the acknowledgement of country. Councillor Condolence.
Thank you, Mayor. We, Ipswich City Council, acknowledge and recognise the sovereign and human rights of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and the communities of Ipswich to self-determination, meaningful engagement with local government and shared governance and decision-making. We commit through the Indigenous Accord to the strengthening of bonds between Council and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities of Ipswich.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kunzelman. We'll now move on to the opening prayer, and Councillor Tully. Amen. Thank you very much, Councillor Tully. I have no apologies. At the moment, I don't have any leave of absences. Are there any upcoming leaves of absences? No. Move on to item 5, which is the condolence motion. I wish to read out a condolence motion for Jane White. I move that Council express its condolences on behalf of the City to the family of Jane White. In moving to express condolences, we really should be moving to express our gratitude and to celebrate Jane's life and contribution to our city. Jane was born on the 14th of January 1953 and passed away on the 4th of August after a short illness. Jane spent much of her childhood in Ipswich, attending school in the city before returning in 1985, married to a serving member of the Royal Australian Air Force. Living in Pring Street with her father and looking for work during school hours, it was a serendipitous visit to the local bowls club that would change Jane's life and so many others right across Ipswich. Jane's father had joined the club to play indoor bowls, with the local hall also hosting Meals on Wheels. One day he came home and mentioned that a job at Meals on Wheels had become available, and eventually Jane was offered the role of coordinator. It was the start of a love for the job and personal dedication that would last 36 years and 3 generations. During her time as coordinator, Jane developed a reputation as someone who didn't just see a job, but an opportunity to make a difference in daily lives. Jane's love for the job saw the Ipswich service grow to support around 150 clients with meals every day, all year round, support the changing needs of the region and touch the lives of thousands of locals. Speaking to the Queensland Times in 2019, Jane said she liked the job because we're helping people, we are all volunteers, I love benefiting people, it's a great job. These twin drivers, the time you give and the love for the job, will be Jane's hallmark during her many decades of service. It was common to see Jane on delivery runs herself, taking her children during school holidays and eventually grandchildren along to deliver meals and check in on clients. Jane's children and grandchildren are now continuing her work, having caught the bug from Mum and Nana over the years. She gave her time outside of her paid role freely, knowing how important it was to make sure clients had someone looking out for them and had someone to talk to during the day. Jane was also responsible for keeping vital services running in Redbank, Lowood, Laidley, and other areas in the region, introducing the Meals on Wheels Ipswich hub. Under Jane's careful eye and attention to detail, the hub amalgamated smaller services into one. Small groups required resources, volunteers, boards, which were becoming increasingly difficult for volunteers. Amalgamating into one larger organisation reduced administration and allowed volunteers to focus on what they wanted to do, deliveries. The streamlined organisation meant that economies of scale were easier and paperwork was simplified. It was Jane's vision and experience in establishing the hub that has enabled Meals on Wheels on Ipswich to overcome challenges and continue deliveries and services. Jane continues our city's long association with Meals on Wheels in Queensland. It was out of a gardener's cottage right here in Ipswich, serving soup out of a thermos and meals out of a pudding bowl, that the service began more than 60 years ago. On behalf of the city, to Jane's daughters Rebecca and Melissa, and grandchildren Madeline, Oscar and Georgia, we pass on our condolences for your loss and our deep gratitude for your mum and Nana's service to our city. We are grateful for her contributions, the time she gave, and the love she had for the cause she championed. She epitomised more than a meal and will well and truly be missed by our entire community. I move that condolence motion. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Would anyone else like to contribute? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour of that condolence motion, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous. Thank you. We go on to item 6, which is tributes, and there are none. We go on to item 7, which is the presentation of a petition of Sadowski Street. So the motion here. We've got the petition here that has asked for, and I'll read this out. The petition says, hi, I'm sure you've realised how bad the traffic is on School Road. I'm asking locals to sign this petition to have the bollards removed from Sadowski Street, Redbank Plains. Quite a few of us now have children that attend St Andrews Primary School on Hallett's Road, and we're forced to drive onto School Road when it can be completely avoided. And we're adding to the already bad congestion on School Road during peak times. This turns a 1-minute drive to their school run to a minimum of 10 to 15 minutes. As the area continues to grow, so does our need for more roads and infrastructure. This simple but small alteration would ease congestion immensely for the locals. The intersection of School Road, Hallett's Road is becoming increasingly dangerous and becoming extremely hard to navigate. The opening of this road will also allow an alternate route to Ipswich via Rice Road. And I've raised this issue with the council with the local member, Sheila. So, Councillor, did you wish to make a motion to move anything here, or you?
Thank you, Mayor. Both Councillor Madsen and I are aware of the congestion down around the school area.
So, may I ask, are you moving this?
Yes, I would like to move it.
And do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Madsen. And I'll open up for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we are both aware of the congestion in the intersection of School Road and Hallett's Road, and we have bitumened quite a few years ago the rest of Sadowski Street. So we would recommend that the bollards be removed so that people can move more freely at school pick-up time. And I know that it all comes down to money in the end, but we are advised that there has been accidents at the intersection with children trying to cross the road. So when it's a safety issue, I think that we are looking at putting lights at that intersection, but I don't know how far out it is. So I certainly support this motion to open Sadowski Street.
So just so you know, Councillor, under our meeting procedures policy, this motion can either only be received, or it can also be referred to a committee or the council organisation to investigate it. So based on that, is your motion to refer this to the council for investigation?
Thank you. That's what I'd like to do. I'd like to refer it to the committee. Thank you.
Would the seconder like to speak to it as well?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just speak in support of the petition, going a bit further and being looked at. It's great to have St Anne's in the community. A lot of happy families attending that school, and we've got some big issues on School Road. Members of the council will know that I'm pretty keen to see that upgraded, and it's there in the capital works a few years from now. Redbank Plains just continues to grow. There's been a number of years in the last 10 where Redbank Plains has been the fastest growing suburb. Safe infrastructure is what people want, and the congestion particularly because Redbank Plains Primary is just up the road on School Road, and the congestion on that Halletts Road, School Road area is just ridiculous of a morning. People are starting to, change their habits to try to avoid the traffic, and it just continues to get worse. So I'm happy to see this looked at. It is an option there. It looks like a small, well, we've actually went for a drive a couple of times around the area and we've stopped and looked at it. It's a small piece of road that could potentially connect the two. So it's worth looking at.
Thank you, Councillor Madsen. Is there any other discussion? No, so I'll just read out the motion. That the petition be received and referred to the appropriate council department for investigation and the preparation of a response or a response or report back to this council. I'll just check with the CEO when that could be done. Within a month, or how much time?
Would need to take advice from the team, Mayor. I would potentially ask for more than a month if we could. Could we ask for 2 months?
Okay.
If we can come back sooner,
Okay.
we certainly will.
So if we can come back by mid-October, please. Is that okay with you, Councillor Owen and Councillor Madsen, that amendment? Yep. Thank you. If there's no other discussion, I'll put that matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 8, which is presentations and deputations, and there are none. So move on to 9. We have our very first public participation that we've had in council, and we have a Mr. Addleton who wishes to participate under our public participation. So Mr. Addleton, I invite you to come to the council chambers and come to the lectern. Feel free to move and adjust the microphone, which is for live. Please do when you speak. Thank you. And just a reminder, so thank you very much for your submission that we've all read. And under the rules, you have 15 minutes, up to 15 minutes allocated to address us. We've all read the background material. And I'll just a reminder that as part of our policy, there's not a debate and discussion is not permitted when you're raising the statement from us. And at the end, council can either decide to refer the matter to the committee, deal with the matter immediately, place the matter on notice for discussion, or take no further action. So I'll hand the floor over to yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, councillors. I'm concerned that the application of Ipswich City Council policies concerning the operation of public swimming pools is restricting the access of some groups to these pools. I've used the policies that have been implemented at the Georgie Conway Leichhardt Community Swim Centre as examples. The particular issues that are of concern are that the council's policy is that swimming pools should be financially viable, that policies are not uniformly applied over all facilities, and the council's sustainability strategy overrides facility patrons' needs. On the financial viability, council officers seem to have decided that the temperature of the pool at the centre will be set to minimise costs rather than to suit the needs of the majority of the patrons. The examples of these decisions are the temperature of the pool will not be maintained in the range of 30 to 32 degrees Celsius, as in past years, because, to quote, reducing your set point will dramatically reduce the running hours of the heaters and gas usage. That the temperature of the pool will not be maintained in the range of 30 to 32 degrees because more use of chemicals during the winter period increasing costs. Additional heater capacity will not be installed because of budgetary constraints. And I'm advised these are operational constraints and not capital constraints. Council officers have also made decisions to reduce the operating hours of the centre during winter because the running costs of the facility with heating the water during the winter and the patronage numbers are usually down. There is some evidence to suggest that the patronage numbers are down because the opening hours are reduced. A copy of the email exchange containing these comments is attached to the written submission. The Complaints Management Unit has investigated the question of reduced hours in winter. The following paragraph is from their report. Therefore, it is reasonable to expect that these commercial considerations are taken into account when determining the winter operational hours for the swimming pool. Commercial considerations including the increased cost of heating the water through the winter months combined with the reduction in patronage numbers. Again, the full report is attached to the written submission. Only on one occasion has a council officer offered an alternate reason for a lower pool temperature. He wrote that pools with water temps too warm can be harmful to swimmers in a number of ways. Dehydration, muscle cramps, and overheating of the body. This comment was put to a senior academic at the School of Exercise and Nutrition Science at QUT. He wrote that the comment is not backed by any evidence I can find and enclosed a paper showing that 5-kilometre swimming performance over 1 hour duration at 32 degrees certainly do not result in body temperatures that will be classified as anything but normal. Again, the full email exchange with QUT is attached. The full comments by council officers are included in the email exchanges that are attached to the written submission. These decisions indicate that a policy of financial viability is being implemented in the operation of the pools. The effect of these decisions is that the number of the largest group of patrons, those engaged in gentle exercise, carers and their clients, and physiotherapists and their clients have dropped almost to zero. It appears that a policy of financial viability is being applied to the operation of a Leichhardt Centre, but is not being applied to other operations at other pools. For example, it has been reported that Orion Lagoon costs council $2 million a year to operate, but no entrance fees are collected. The full report on Orion Lagoon is attached again to the written submission. Council officers also apparently decided that some reduction in operating hours during winter should not be applied across all public swimming pools in the city. The council website shows that these winter opening hours are for Leichhardt Centre, it's 5:30 to 6 p.m. on weekdays. Saturdays it's 7 to 12, and on Sundays the pool is closed. At Bundamba, the opening hours Monday to Thursday are 5 to 7:30, on Friday from 5 to 7, and from Saturday to 7 to 1 p.m. And on Sunday, I believe, I don't have a Sunday number, but at Goodna, it's again 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And Saturday 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. and on Sunday it's open from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Council officers have confirmed that the current hours for winter operations were put in place by council, not by the managers of the pools. There are significant differences in operating hours, particularly at critical times for some patrons. 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Friday and on Saturday and Sunday. The particular patrons I was thinking of are those who work. Now, if you finish work at 5 o'clock, you don't want to go to Leichhardt Pool, which closes at 6, because you won't get there till 5:30. So that extra hour is critical to patronage numbers. One officer has written that the heating methods at the centre have been changed because previous target temperatures were not in line with Council's sustainability strategy. The officer bases this view on the following section from Council's sustainability policy document. Efficient use of resources. Council will utilise resources efficiently and effectively by implementing best practice across operation and programs. Energy, water and waste are the key areas of focus for resource efficiency. Council's fleet, transport and mobility will also be considered here. There is no indication to me that there has been any investigation of alternate heating methods to achieve the previous target temperatures and still achieve best practice. Upgrading the current solar heating system would be one such method. The Toowoomba Regional Council and the Warwick Regional Council both heat their pools with solar energy. If councils want to see the practical effects at the Leichhardt Centre of the policy for heating the pools, then they can compare the temperature logs at the pools with the attendance figures. These temperatures are taken 4 times a day, and if you look at them, as the temperature goes down, the attendance goes down. It's as simple as that. The rest of the background information and the data that supports it are attached to the written submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alderton. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Mr. Alderton for a very well-researched request. And I can see in the background paper that you've been in discussion with council officers since the 2nd of August on this issue. And being not happy with that, you had the option to either speak to your councillors or attend public participation. So we have a few options here. I'd like to move that we do refer this matter to the GIW and that they report back to us in October. And I guess I'm putting forward this, and I'll leave that up for discussion with councillors here. But in that report, may we have a 10-year history of the temperatures of the Ipswich pools, the hours of the operations of the Ipswich pools. I'll let Vicky catch up. It's the 10-year history of the temperature as well as the hours. Yeah, GIW in October. And these are the things I'd like to have in that report. So the 10-year history of the temperature of the pools, the hours of operations of the pools. When I say pools, I mean all the Ipswich pools. How this was decided. Does the contractor have discretion to change it, or how is that? I guess what the contractual arrangements are. And was there any community or customer feedback in making these decisions on the temperature and the hours? I'm putting that forward, but I'm open to discussion. I think I'll ask someone to second it so we can go into discussion, if that's okay. Councillor Doyle, you'll second that. But maybe I'll now open up for discussion and open to amendments.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I too would just like to thank Mr Alderton for attending today and advocating on behalf of residents that use the Leichhardt pool and articulating so well as Mr Alderton always does. In the last few months, Councillor Beckner and I have been approached by long-term users of the Leichhardt Swim Centre, and including Mr Alderton, who we recently met with. They're deeply concerned that the recent water temperatures reduction in the heated main pool has severely reduced their ability to fully use and enjoy the facility. Many of these pool users are older residents with restricted or limited mobility and who greatly benefit from being able to access and exercise in this pool. These residents have told us they can't continue using the pool after the temperature is reduced from around 32 degrees to 28 degrees. We've also met with Mr Alderton about the concerns he discussed today and thank him again for his efforts and research. While Leichhardt Pool is not officially designated a hydrotherapy pool, over many years a legitimate expectation has developed in the community that in many ways it operates as one, especially given the main pool has a disability ramp access and that the water has been heated to 32 degrees. We understand the operation decisions about council pools are the responsibility of relevant council departments, and as councils we don't set the water temperatures. However, on behalf of the residents, we've raised these concerns with the department and we have been going back and forth. Councillor Beckner and I have been doing our own research and investigating. We appreciate that the heating of the Leichhardt pool to a higher temperature comes at a cost, not only in energy bills but in providing additional pool heaters and then maintaining them. We also accept that council outdoor pools in other local government areas are generally only heated to a lower temperature. Leichhardt pools currently heated to 28 degrees, for instance, which council officers have told us is the adopted standard across local government, running outdoor swimming pools. Council previously maintained the pool at a higher temperature, but we were advised by the organisation that as a result there is an overspend, sorry, not as a result, but there is an overspend in the current management budget, which has led to the decision making in place at the moment. Swimming pools are highly subsidised by council, and council has had to make a sensible and sustainable cost-saving measures across the city maintenance portfolio, and bring our pools in alignment with other councils. However, we are concerned about the genuine impact this decision has had on residents who've relied on this particular pool for so long. While it's not in our current powers as councillors to turn up the dial on the pool heaters, Councillor Fechner and I are committed to advocating for and continuing to investigate the alternative arrangements at the pool that may assist these residents. So thank you, Mayor. I do agree, I think, with the contents of the report. I just note Councillor Fechner and I are waiting on next quarter's electricity bills, so we can do a bit more analysis. I'm not sure if the timing's going to align with a report going to the committee in October.
If I may say, the CEO has given me that time frame that the organisation can get back to us by October.
Yeah, I'm just not sure that pool will address, that report's going to address or provide the information Councillor Fechner and I are looking for.
Yeah, just to you, Mayor, we are waiting on that bill, and that will give us greater context around the cost increases. So if council does need to make a determination about pool strategy and consistency across the city and potentially changing some of the decisions that are currently in place, we need to have that information to see exactly what the cost difference is in that. I understand
when's the bill coming
a
forward?
bill is due in October, but I'm
Right.
unsure as to when that may be, so we can just...
I'm sorry, and thank you, Mayor. I just, I don't see the October 2021 timing. I
We'll
appreciate...
base that, we'll make that November.
Yeah, I mean, we're hitting the warmer months then anyway, and I've already, expressed to Mr. Alderton that, we're unlikely, if we can achieve some changes, it's unlikely to be implemented until next winter, realistically. But that is obviously not a promise. I understand we've got to do our due diligence here. So yes, November's probably a better time.
So I'm asking you to change that to November, and I'm just wondering if I add another dot point to ask for the report to contain any other relevant information that may aid us in our decision making.
Thank you.
Look, can I just say, and I didn't want to interrupt you, Councillor, but under our council, we don't do debate and discussion at this, we do it when it comes back, when the report comes back to us. So I'm going to truncate that there, and put that forward to vote. So I've moved it, and Councillor Doyle has seconded it. I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous and carried. Thank you. I now move on to item 10, which is declarations of interest in matters on the agenda. May I ask if there are any declarations of interest? Thank you, Councillor Fechner.
Thanks, Mayor. In accordance with Section 150 EQ of the Local Government Act of 2009, I, Councillor Andrew Fechner, inform the meeting that I have declarable conflict of interest in item number 14.6. The nature of the declarable conflict of interest is my business interests in both A1A Proprietary Limited and Bar Heisenberg Proprietary Limited, both located in the top of town. I plan on dealing with this conflict by leaving the room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fechner. Are there any other declarations? Thank you, Councillor Madsen.
In accordance with Section 150 EQ of the Local Government Act 2009, I, Councillor Jacob Madsen, inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in item 14.6 titled Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee Report. The nature of the declarable conflict of interest is I'm on the executive of the Ipswich Trades Hall and Labor Day Committee, and our building, the Ipswich Trades Hall, is immediately adjacent to the redevelopment works. As a result of my conflict of interest that I've declared, I'll leave the meeting room while the matter is considered and voted on.
Thank you very much, Councillor Madsen. I appreciate both of you making those declarations. Are there any other declarations of interest? Thank you, Councillor Tully.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. This is a declaration in relation to items 15.5 and 15.6, and it's probably with an abundance of caution that I make the declaration. 15.5 is the membership fee report coming up later on. 15.6 is the motions for the conference, the annual conference in Mackay in October. I'll just formally declare that in accordance with Section 150 EF of the Local Government Act 2009, I, Councillor Paul Tully, inform the meeting that I may have a personal interest in those two items. And the nature of the personal interest is that I'm a member of the policy executive of the LGAQ. And just having made that, that's up to the committee or the council to decide whether or not I'd be intending to remain and vote with no conditions imposed, simply because they are relatively simple matters. But given publicity, if I just, with your indulgence, just say this, the publicity around the state about the need and caution of making declarations, I personally don't see any conflict in those two matters, but for the sake of completeness, I make that declaration.
Thank you. You make that to the vote of those matters? So
Yes.
based on that, and you've asked for the councils to... Based on that, in accordance with Section 150 EQ of the Local Government Act 2009, I guess you've stated... So I guess what's your motion that you're...
I beg your pardon, Mayor, EF.
Sorry?
150 EF.
Yeah.
EF.
Yes, Mayor. 150 EF. And there's a sample resolution there on the notes that we have.
Purple.
Yep, thank you. So I note that for 15.5 and 15.6, that I move that Councillor Tully participates and votes on items 15.5, which is the LGAQ membership, as well as the LGAQ conference motions, because I think there's a reasonable person would trust that the final decision is made in the public interest, and it's also you're doing that as your role as a councillor. It's not like you've gone outside your role, like you were an office bearer of the local footy club or something like that. It's to do with the above a bit like Councillor Kunz with the rabbit board. You are there as a in your role as a councillor. So do I have a seconder for that particular? Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Any discussion? I'll put the matter to the vote. If those in favour, please raise your hand. I note that it's unanimous, and I, except for I think Councillor Tully abstaining,
That's correct.
so there's 8 of us voting. Thank you very much for declaring that, Councillor Tully. I'll move on to item 11, which is the confirmation of our last meeting on the 22nd of July. I'll move those minutes are accurate. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second
for that? Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Thank you very much. Any discussion? No discussion. In that case, I'll move the matter for the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous and carried. Thank you. Item 12 is a mayoral minute. There is none. The next item is item 13, which is business outstanding, including conduct matters and matters lying on the table to be dealt with. And that's item 13.1, the Studiosity procurement. I think this is the third time this has come to us. May we have the relevant council officer to the lectern, please? May you state your name and job title, please?
Thank you, Mayor, councillors. Ben Pohl, General Manager, Community, Cultural and Economic Development.
Thank you. Mr Pohl, obviously we're looking at a $30,000 subscription over 12 months. Do you consider this purchase to be value for money for the ratepayers of Ipswich?
Myself and the Library Services team believe that it is a service that is of value to the community. Its previous 12-month usage we would suggest was not value for money, but with the goal to improve that usage, we believe that we can actually achieve value for money.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of Mr Pohl? No, thank you very much, Mr Pohl. Would anyone like to move this recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Sorry, A through C, yes. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Milligan. I'll now open it up for discussion. Would the mover or the seconder like to speak to it? Are there support?
Yeah, I speak in support of this, and it's the first time that I'm actually weighing in because I'm not a member of the Governance and Transparency Committee,
Right.
but I've been following this closely, and I've been keeping a keen eye on the discussion around value for money and benefit to the community. And I think that this is an important service that we offer to people who wouldn't otherwise have access to such a great educational tool. So I think that it's really important that we continue this. As Mr Pohl said, if there's a drive to improve the usage of this, it can only get better in terms of that value for money. But we saw Mr Alderton take the lectern this morning to speak about, community equity and usage, and I think that, we need to be taking care of members in our community who have a vested interest in, in Mr Alderton's case, heating of the pools, but in this case, access to educational tools to improve someone's position. So I think that, I speak in favour of the continuation of the Studiosity, and I think that, this, even at its current usage rate, I'm of the belief that this is valuable to our community because it's delivering educational needs.
Thank you. I guess for me, Councillor Fick, I'm in two minds with this particular one. And obviously this is the third time I'm seeing it, and each time we've asked for information. And it's good to see that at this stage we've had it confirmed that it's being used by people from grades 3 to 12. And I think it's a valuable service. I just ask, I guess, what I'm looking at is it a council responsibility? It is about education, noting that our schools, as well as the Smith family and a lot of other organisations, I think Smith family and TAFE both have subscriptions to Studiosity as well. I would have liked the organisation to have, I guess, investigated that and done some case management with people. So that's why I'm sort of in two minds and interested in the discussion here today to see what people's views are on this particular one. I believe that these people should be supported, but is it council's role to do that? Noting it is costing around $1,000 per person to access it. Any discussion? Councillor Milligan?
Thank you, Mayor. I concur completely with Councillor Fechner's remarks, and specifically with the point that at times local governments provide various services to community that are subsidised and sometimes heavily subsidised. And I think in balancing and weighing up the decision, you have to look at what the actual outcomes are of that. And after reviewing this, I believe completely that the outcomes are worth the subsidy that Ipswich City Council provides in this service through our library services.
Thank you, Councillor Milligan. Councillor Doyle?
Thank you, Mayor. During the last time this matter came before us, I think I suggested that we potentially, or we had confirmation that we could commit for another 12 months rather than a further 3 years. So I think the next 12 months will be important. We can really see and do some analysis on the users, and also investigate if there's an alternative product out there. Really need to understand the targeted audience, because I was led to believe initially that it was school children as well as university students, and I certainly know from my close friends in academia at QUT, it's not something they're familiar with. So, but if it's certainly something that's very beneficial for our children in primary and high school, then and it's used well, then yeah, I'll be supportive. So let's see what the next 12 months brings.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Councillor Johnny?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would agree with Councillor Doyle on this, and just from the detail that we've received back from the officers, there's assistance with resume writing and things of that nature as well. So if we can definitely look into the next 12 months to see how it measures up. Obviously, there's a lot of support from the organisation for it being a good program. So, yeah, look forward to the results in 12 months.
Thank you. And I just note in the report on page, I think, 27, that in the last financial year, we paid, I guess, $25,000 and 26 users used it. So I just think whatever... If this does proceed, we just need to be really aware of what council's core role is, and we obviously care a lot about the education of our kids, but obviously there's only so much money that councils receive. Councils only receive 3% of all the taxes that are collected, and we can't do everything. So I'll put the matter, if there's any, and I guess because I've just spoken again negatively, I'll go to the mover to see if there's anything he'd like to say to sum up.
Yeah, just that I look forward to the next 12 months to see what the library services teams can bring, and hopefully new participants in the use of this Studiosity. And I just, good, healthy debate in the room, scrutinising this money. I look forward to seeing how we scrutinise other programs financially worth lots more money in our budget discussions moving forward.
Thank you. No, I've just closed it off, and so that was the reply. I'll now put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And I can see that it's Councillor Madsen, Councillor Ireland, Councillor Johnny, Councillor Tully, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Fechner, Councillor William, Councillor Kunzelmann. Those against, it's just myself. So the motion is carried. So we move on to item 14, which is the reception and consideration of committee reports. We go first to the Growth, Infrastructural and Waste Committee, which is a committee that has full delegation, so we're just noting that. So as the Chair, I will move that. Do I have a seconder for that, Councillor Kunzelman? Thank you very much. Any discussion on those committee reports? No? In that case, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous and carried. Thank you. The next item, which is 14.2, is the Governance and Transparency Committee. I'll hand over to the Chair if they'd like to move the motion on what they'd like to be done here.
Happy to move the recommendation as is. The only item we had on our agenda a fortnight ago was indeed the Studiosity matter we have just dealt with. Very robust discussion, and I'd like to thank committee members for their contributions. I think it was a very worthwhile conversation.
Okay, so the motion that you're moving is that Council adopt the recommendations of the Governance and Transparency Committee report number 2021-7 of the 5th of August 2021. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Milligan. Any discussion? No, I'll move that to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. It's unanimous and carried. We'll now move on to item 14.3, which is the Community, Culture, Arts and Sports Committee report. I'll hand over to the Chair of that to see what their motion is.
Noting that we only considered the minutes of the previous meeting, I'll move to accept the recommendations of the committee.
Okay, so we'll move that, the recommendation of that committee. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Any discussion? No, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous and carried. We'll now move on to item 14.4, which is the Economic and Industry Development Committee report. I'll hand over to the Chair of that committee for her motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to support all the recommendations from that committee in full.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Any discussion? No, in that case I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. We now come to item 14.5, which is the Environment Sustainability Committee report. I'll hand over to the Chair for that motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that the one item of new business on the agenda be received, and that was specifically Bremer River Shopping Trolley Clean-up Program report for 2020-2021. There was, during the discussion on the matter, additional items that were added to the recommendation, which was successfully moved. And I will just point out to Council that there has been some community interest and discussion with regards to the matter, and I'd just like to move that the report be received.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Any discussion on that report? No. In that case, I put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous and carried. We now go to item 14.6, and I'll hand over to the Chair of that committee for that motion. Oh, sorry, I apologise. I'll wait for... and I'll just let the two of you know that I'll break for morning tea after this motion as well. So. Would you like us to return and vote on the procedural motion? Yes, okay, thank you. I'll hand over to the Chair for item 14.6 on what motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I propose that all three items from the committee be moved together in batch.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Any discussion? No, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous in the room, noting that Councillor Fechner and Madsen are not in the room. I'll now pause and wait for Councillor Fechner and Councillor Madsen to return to the room. Thank you very much. I now move standing order for an adjournment for 20 minutes. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous, so it is 9:57. Just to make it easier, make it 10:20. See you back then. Thank you. We're recording? I think we're back to recording the ordinary council meeting. It's 10:22. I've been told that we still can't connect up to YouTube, so this is being recorded, and I've been informed that this will be uploaded on our channels within 60 minutes of this meeting ending. So my apologies for that. So we're moving on now. We're up to item 15, which is 15.1, the CEO Organisational Performance Report for July 2021. I'll just ask the acting CEO to provide a bit of a summary of that report, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. If I could highlight this month, as indicated in the report, that with the implementation of the current financial year's annual plan and the significant projects and deliverables that are set out in that annual plan, our Enterprise Program Management Office is supporting responsible sponsors of each of those projects and the lead officers to ensure that we are carefully setting out the plans to deliver those projects and deliverables, to monitor our performance, and it's our plan that we will be providing highlights of the implementation of those projects in the monthly CEO Organisational Performance Report each month as we go forward. We'll of course continue the monthly financial performance report, and the Infrastructure and Environment Department has reshaped and refocused and has a new format capital delivery report that it'll be bringing forward to the Growth, Infrastructure and Waste Committee for this financial year to continue to sharpen the focus on the delivery of the capital program. So a few highlights of the many in the report, with the delivery in July of the reimagined Ipswich Festival, Spark Ipswich, over an 11-day citywide program, and that's part of the City Events Plan 2021-2022. We saw a new policy introduced in the form of the Environmental Offsets Policy, once again in line with our annual plan, and councillors received a briefing on the draft Ipswich Libraries Strategy 2021-26, which has been in development for some months now. Separately on your agenda today is the quarterly performance report, so I won't speak to that in detail, but have highlighted that here in this report as well, given it was a body of work to pull together that quarterly performance report to the State Government Department. I would just like to again highlight workforce health, safety and wellbeing as a obviously hugely critical focus for the organisation in terms of the safety and wellbeing of its workforce. I'm concerned again to see 2 lost time injuries. As the report says, we take these very seriously, and specific action has been taken in response to each of those cases to address the causal factors on a short, medium and longer term basis, to do all that we can to prevent the recurrence of incidents and injuries to our workforce. Thank you, Mayor. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the acting CEO? No, in that case, I'll move the report. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fechner. I'll open up for discussion. No, I'll just let you know that, just to let the councillors know that when we do go through attachment 1, and it's got the progress of all the actions there, that'll be updated, I think, for the next monthly one, because there's obviously a lot of things that it says in progress which actually have been completed, so the organisation will update that as well. In that case, I'll put this report to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. That's unanimous and carried. Thank you very much, Acting CEO, for that report.
Thank you.
Move on to item 15.2, the quarter 4, so the end of the financial year, operational plan for 2020-21, the quarterly performance report. Would anyone like to ask the relevant council officer any questions on this report? May I ask the relevant council officer to come to the lectern, please?
That will be me today, Mayor.
Okay.
Due to illness yeah.
Thank you. I guess I have obviously read through the report, so thank you very much. It's quite easy to read. Is there anything of concern that you would like to highlight to the council?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I guess before I highlight the concerns, I can't help but highlight the many, again, significant achievements that have been achieved in the quarter from April to June 2021. And as I'm sure you can see, there are many there, from the adoption of iFuture, opening of 1 Nicholas Street, the Children's Library, the publishing of Council's new community development strategy that was well received, delivery of the Flavours of Ipswich pilot program, adoption of the resource recovery strategy and implementation plan, the Green Workplace Travel Plan. It was great to see the Best of Queensland program naming Ipswich Nature Centre as one of Queensland's best experiences and attractions, and of course the significant delivery of the capital program in this quarter. There are, however, 3 at-risk deliverables, as you will have seen in the report, being the planning scheme and local government infrastructure plan, the social infrastructure plan, which is reliant on the planning scheme and LGIP, and the update of the sustainability strategy. We have set out, nonetheless, in the report, action that has been taken on those deliverables and the progress that has been made, but it is not the progress that we had hoped and expected and planned at this stage, Mayor. Thank you.
CEO. Any other questions of the CEO? No, I'll move this report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Peckman. Thank you, CEO. I think this is quite an accomplishment. It's well done on this performance.
Thank you to the team, of course. Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Any other discussion? No, in that case, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 15.3. And that is, there are 3 recommendations in that. So it's a request for quarterly reports to the Department of State Development, Infrastructure, Local Government and Planning. I move all 3. I guess, are there any questions of the relevant council officer for this particular report? No? I move all 3 recommendations. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you. Councillor Fickner. Any discussion? No, I just think it's a good report, and I'm really pleased that we can report this to the DG of the department on the progress of as we have moved out of administration and how the council is operating. It's great to show the work that we're doing. I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous and carried. Thank you. I'll move on to item 15.4, which is the report, Audit and Risk Management Committee of 2021-03 of the 21st of June. And the recommendation that the contents is received and noted, and the recommendations contained therein be adopted. Would anyone like to ask the relevant council officer any questions on this report? No? Do I have a mover? And I'm looking at the members of that. Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. They're both our members on that particular committee. Thank you. Any discussion or highlights anyone like to raise on that? No? I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 15.5, which is the LGAQ 2021-2022 membership. I do know that this is within the CEO's delegation, but we thought we'd be open and transparent and bring this here. The recommendation is that Council endorse membership of the LGAQ for the 2021-2022 financial year at the cost of $358,393, including GST. And I also have a note here, I think, from the Secretariat that there's a minor amendment in regards to the human rights, not human resources. CEO, did you wish to speak to that? Well, that's just I think in here it's...
Mayor, I can
Yes.
clarify with apologies. The report did go forward with a Human Rights Act assessment based on it being a receive and note report, which of course it is not. So we have corrected that, and a corrected version of the report has been published and correctly assesses the human rights impact. There being no human rights infringed, but nonetheless it's been corrected accordingly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone like to ask the relevant council officer any questions on this particular motion? No? I will move this recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fechner. I'll open it up for discussion. No discussion? In that case, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. We move on to item 15.6, which are motions for the 2021 Local Government Association of Queensland Conference. And there are three recommendations here, and they're basically three motions that this council wishes to put forward to the LGAQ in there. So I don't think there's a relevant council officer for this. So I'll move recommendations A, B and C. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Tully. I'll open it up for discussion. Thank you, Councillor Tully.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I speak principally in relation to the first two motions, which are similar in many ways, and that is that the LGA, this is the motion being put forward to the LGA conference in Mackay in the near future, make representations to the state governments, specifically the Department of Education, for a new agreement between the two parties, that's the LGAQ, Local Government Association of Queensland, the Education Department, in relation to processes for education infrastructure. And the twin motion, I might speak of them together, that it's in relation to the establishment of schools and their impact on the broader transport network. As we know, state governments are not required to get town planning approval or development approval from the relevant 77 councils in Queensland. There are generally what's called ministerial designations for state government offices, schools, hospitals and police stations, and the community is effectively taken out of that process. And over the years, many schools in particular have been developed with inadequate, these are state-based schools of course, because other applications tend to come to the local council. Inadequate parking, inadequate facilities in the approaches to the school, which are determined by the state government alone. And what that does, in my view, is to take away the local input from the local community. And I think all of us can point to examples where there are safety issues that have arisen as a result of that. I would be very confident, without necessarily predicting it, that these motions are likely to be overwhelmingly supported by councils around Queensland. It's an ongoing problem. It's only ever been partially addressed, and we still have inadequate facilities being provided, particularly in relation to schools which are established in close proximity to homes and which are highly trafficked. I think that's the real issue, that morning and afternoon there are major transport issues, and there are numerous examples where part of the private property has been developed for an off-street car park, and then that's then handed over and declared to be a public road, and the council's then responsible for it. So I would urge councils to support these, because I think we will get the support of the majority, if not all, of the other councils in Queensland with these motions.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. Would anyone else like to discuss any of the motions?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so I agree with Councillor Tully. A lot of responsibility comes back on us as council, and we've got certain regulations that we adhere to in planning that sometimes aren't then adhered to by state, and so I think that there will be overwhelming support by other large councils for this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess you've talked a bit about education, the two councils there. For that third motion, where we call on the state government to include regional infrastructure plans as a key component, key infrastructure plans as part of each Queensland regional plan. The current South East Queensland region plan, which was approved in 2017, has Ipswich accepting 30% of the growth in South East Queensland, and I think, Councillor Tully, you're the acting mayor and signed off on that.
Yeah, that's correct.
But we're finding we're not getting the corresponding funding from the federal government or the state government. So I think it'd be really great, and especially for the high growth councils, that there is that link of if there's growth, there has to be infrastructure funding as well. So that's, I guess, my push for that third motion as well, and I'll be supporting the other two motions as well. Any other discussion? Councillor Doyle?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to thank councillors Jonik and Tully for putting the motion forward. Thank you, Councillor Jonik, and completely support Councillor Tully's comments. I guess a real life example that Councillor Fechner and I have been dealing with relates to Bremer State High. Yeah. It's a very good example of where the school was only built to house 1,400 students. It very quickly blew out to 2,100 students, and we're headed for 2,400 students. The road infrastructure was not built to accommodate the sheer volume of traffic, be teachers, parents, kids, and there's lots of issues there, and we are working very closely with the principal at Bremer State High, and he's brought in state officers as well to try and battle plan that one, but absolutely, thank you. We certainly feel the impacts here at local government.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Councillor Johnny?
Sorry, just through you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Doyle. I just wanted to thank the organisation as well, because I draw from their strengths when we got this motion written. So I'm not a planner or a road engineer, but lent on them really heavily for the information that they brought forward. And similarly with our schools in Bellbird Park, you see this fantastic infrastructure right at the front for active transport, then leads to, no connected footpaths merely 150 metres down the road. And so I think holistically, when you have a catchment of kids that are wanting to come to school and you want to promote active transport, to have a lack of even footpath access is negligible, really. Thank you.
Thank you. And I might refer to Councillor Madsen. I can't remember the exact figure. I think when St Anne's and Redbank Plains opened, we don't receive any money, but I think we spent over $1 million in doing the roadworks around that school to allow that. I can't remember the exact figure. I remember the school opening, you were discussing it.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't recall the figure either,
Okay,
but part of that earlier petition presented today was that the works that were done to the road are still pretty insufficient. It's not getting people in and out, and still very, very interesting. And then things come along and you've got people who've lived in cul-de-sacs for a long time, and then all of a sudden a school access point is proposed next to them, and then another heap of traffic in an area that wasn't built for traffic. It's the impacts that a school has on an area. Most of them beneficial, obviously, more educated people, that's good, but the traffic aspects are just wide-reaching. And like St Anne's, for example, we've already got issues there with the traffic, and the amount of students will double each year for about 4 or 5 years, because they only started with grade 1 and 2, I think, in prep. So once they get up to P to 6, it's going to be, 4 times the amount of students. And how's the infrastructure going to be? I mean, we all know through our budget process that it's pretty hard to do all the roadworks that we want to do over a given period of time, let alone 12 months. So when we've got all these schools coming to the area, it's a massive area of concern.
Thank you. I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in for those three recommendations. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 15.7, which is a notice of motion response for the council local office space. And this report is an initial response from the organisation to the notice of motion from Deputy Mayor Jonik that was adopted at the Ordinary Council meeting on the 22nd of July. The recommendation is that council note that officers have been working to assess and document the implications of that resolution, and B, that a council workshop be held for councillors on the 7th of September, so I think in 2.5 weeks' time, to discuss the implications that will be advised by officers to consider the preferred approach to local office space in existing council facilities. And C is that following a workshop, a report be presented no later than October 2021 to the ordinary council meeting, with options to provide a long-term solution to establish council local office space at Springfield Central, Redbank Plains and Rosewood Libraries. And D, I think, which is very important, that officers continue to support councils wishing to utilise the existing spaces on an as-required basis in the short term. Would anyone like to speak to the relevant council officer on this? No? In that case, I'll move this paper. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Tully? Thank you very much. Any discussion? Councillor Tully?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I'm supportive of the motion with one amendment which I will propose, and that's in paragraph C, so as to not restrict the consideration of the wider issue at the councillor workshop. I propose that in the last few words of paragraph C, the words at Springfield Central, Redbank Plains and Rosewood Libraries be deleted. The reason being that I'll propose that in a moment as a formal amendment is that it would enable us in the workshop not to be inhibited by either the issue of the just in libraries or elsewhere, and the wider issue about the positioning of these. So may I formally move an amendment that in paragraph C to delete the words at Springfield Central, Redbank Plains and Rosewood Libraries.
I'll say as the mover, I don't support that. It does go, the original motion was quite specific that it would be in the libraries. It was quite specific, and then I think that amendment would significantly change that for the workshop. So I guess if you wish to put it, so you obviously need to put that as an amendment and it'll be voted on.
Well, if I have a seconder, I'll explain further.
So have you got that there? Do I have a seconder to that? So are you saying you're proposing that in the workshop we discuss having local officers not in the library and go back to having electoral officers? Is that what you're saying?
No, but if I have a seconder, I can just expand on what I've just said.
So you wish to second that? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. No, what I'm suggesting is that we're having a general workshop in relation to this the motion. This is not to amend the other motion in any way. It's just to have a general workshop, and the way that the proposed motion today is worded, it would restrict a wider discussion at that workshop, not necessarily of 4 or 8 electorate officers, but just whether or not local office space would be best positioned at, for example, a library. I understand, for example, there might be limited space, particularly at the Redbank Plains Library. So is there some other solution, still consistent with the motion that went through council at the last meeting? It's not to open up or broaden or substantially change the intent of the previous motion. It's simply to enable that workshop just to have a slightly widened expansion and consideration of the overall issue.
Councillor Johnny, as the seconder, would you like to speak to it?
Thank you, Mayor. So I just following on from Councillor Tully's points on that amendment, it would basically just act as looking at the issue holistically as opposed to just narrowing it down only to those sites, because I know from feedback gained so far that there is one location that is not feasible size-wise and with COVID restrictions. So I guess it would just be to think outside the square as well for council facilities, not to impose anything extra or change the intention of my original motion, but to not narrow the search or options and discussions in forward planning. That's my understanding, and that's why I have seconded that amendment.
Thank you. I'll speak against this, that particular amendment. I think we all know we've been into many workshops. The very nature of the workshop, it's very free-flowing. if we wish to amend or change that scope, we will have those discussions in there. So I think the very nature of having a workshop will allow a great deal of flexibility. And you state that you wish to be consistent with the previous motion. Well, I think that is consistent with the previous motion, and I think that's probably, the amendment is not needed. And I am concerned that it is looking at setting up electoral offices, and that's a whole different question. The whole intention behind this was it was to be a local office in a library at minimal cost and impact to the organisation. So I think opening it up is a whole different kettle of fish. So I speak against the motion, that amendment, sorry. I open up for anyone who'd like to speak for it. Yes, Councillor Madsen?
I'm not speaking for it. I'd just like to ask through you, Chair, the acting CEO, if the exclusion of other council facilities, as the recommendation is worded, does that prevent that we can get some costings and some options that are still publicly facing council facilities? Would that be still able to be presented in the workshop? Because the way that this goes, the workshop will only discuss possible office locations at libraries. So what I'm saying is, I haven't even done enough thinking to ascertain if there are other publicly facing council facilities that are appropriate for such a measure. But if there are, I would be happy for those to be tabled at the workshop as part of the discussion, similar to the same extent.
I note the question to the CEO, and I also note that that's not what the amendment says. The amendment doesn't say using other council facilities. It's quite open, but I'll defer to you, CEO.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We're here to serve. I would have the view that an amendment that would certainly be in keeping with the original resolution of the council would be to consider changing it to existing council-owned and controlled facilities. But I also don't necessarily hold the view that when workshopping, you would necessarily be limited by the motion as it's currently worded. So I leave it to you with that.
Yes, Councillor Madsen.
I guess with workshops, you all know that I like having any and all information that helps me frame what the best decision is for the city moving forward. So my only concern would be that if an amendment doesn't proceed, which broadens it out a little bit, I don't think anybody's looking at having any new shop fronts leased out or anything like that. I don't think that that's being put forward by anyone.
That's the way the amendment is put forward at the moment. It doesn't specify that it's a existing council-owned or controlled facility.
That it's, in my humble opinion, it's open to interpretation, and perhaps some alternative wording can be proposed to close off the area of concern that you have. But I would say that I would like, not so much that I would like, it's not my amendment, I'm just saying that if members of the council want some more information to be prepared for that workshop so that we can do our pre-reading and we can come in and have a robust discussion with a broader array of options, then I'm okay with that, because it's not a decision, it's just saying what's going to be given consideration at that workshop. Yep. So if we get more information, more options, it can help frame what an appropriate response is.
And I think the CEO and myself have both said, obviously, in a workshop we discussed broad things. Councillor, would you be open to amending slightly your amendment to make sure it does include existing council facilities?
Yeah, with your indulgence,
yes.
And I'll just, I note how that could be interpreted that way, and that wasn't the intention. But let me say this, that it's not just the discussion at the workshop, it's the report that's presented. Under current paragraph C, the report presented would just refer to the libraries. So yes, I agree with what's been said, that we can have a wide-ranging discussion, but we are limiting the offices to the way it's currently worded to simply look at the library. So could I suggest, and based on that discussion, to withdraw that proposed amendment and to change it to read to local office space at council libraries or other existing council facilities, if the seconder is You're the seconder of that amendment.
Okay, then a seconder from council. Yep.
Yeah, I'll
Thank
just
you.
repeat that. At council libraries or other existing council facilities.
Other- Yes. I'll just- Yeah. So I'm just looking at recommendation B, which is that a council work should be held for councillors, and it's discussing applications to be advised by officers to consider their preferred approach to local office space in existing council facilities. So it does cover off on that, you know, when it comes to the workshop as well. So I think the amendment doesn't add to it at all.
Except if I make the point that the current wording of paragraph C restricts the report to office space in libraries. And this is just to doubly make sure that the discussion can be a little more, little wider in relation to office space in existing council facilities, and that the report that comes back following the workshop follows the intention of paragraph B as well.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Any other discussion on that?
Yeah, I took the intent of the amendment in a way that would suggest to me that it was council-owned facilities. I mean, I spoke in support of the original motion to investigate spaces for councillors to connect with their community. And yeah, so I support these recommendations as they stand. I think
We're talking about the amendment first before we go to the...
So yeah, I support this amendment for consistency with both the workshop and the report.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anyone wish to speak to the amendment? I just note Councillor Cord's made a hand up.
Just clarification, I believe the word existing is missing there.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cord's. Councillor Madsen.
I don't intend to drag this discussion on, but the last comments that you made, Mayor, about the recommendations, is this an example where it's all covered in recommendation B, and indeed recommendation C does not need to exist to accomplish what we're seeking here? There's a bit of duplication between B and C, and I mean, it's talking about a report for October pending the workshop, but yeah, I think C should probably only be talking about a workshop, a report coming to council in October following the workshop, because in B, local office space in existing council facilities. And again, I don't intend to drag it on. Whatever my
It's an important discussion.
fellow councillors will discuss, it just caught my brain in the wrong way, that one.
Through the Mayor, and also without wanting to prolong, I agree, if I may, that we could stop recommendation C at options, because C is really there just to confirm the timing that we'll bring forward a report to the ordinary council meeting. So we could stop at options rather than repeat.
Okay, I'll just put that to the mover of that motion. Would you be open to that, Councillor Tully, to I guess, for C to just be saying that following a workshop, a report be presented no later than October 2021, ordinary council meeting with options, full stop. Well, yeah, it does say that following a workshop, a report will be presented. So that's the beginning of the sentence. Well, yeah, with options. Yep.
And to change propose an amendment to paragraph C so that it reads with relevant options, full stop.
Okay, so option C, recommendation C will be that following a workshop, a report will be presented no later than October 2021, ordinary council with relevant options, full stop. Yep. Okay. Councillor Johnny, would you like to second that?
Oh,
Yes, thank you. I'll open, is there any other discussion on that? If not, I was going to put it to the
Just
vote.
through you, Mayor. So not to lose my initial intention of this motion that I put forward in the last ordinary council meeting to find cost-effective solutions for our councillors to be out in their communities.
Yeah, I'm just speaking to the amendment at the moment.
Oh,
If that's okay. In that case, I'll put the amendment, not the motion itself, but just the amendment, which is actually to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. I see it's unanimous and carried. Thank you. Now we'll go to those 4 recommendations. And I see that originally I was the mover for that and Councillor Tully was the seconder. I'll open up for discussion. Did you wish to raise your
through
point
you,
now?
Mayor, just to reiterate that not to lose the original intention of my motion to get our councillors out in the community more and to be available for further interactions with community members and our ratepayers and as much as possible, instill more connection really is what my intention was with a cost-effective solution by utilising existing infrastructure and assets. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, Councillor Madsen?
Just like to add that I'm really happy to have the discussion about how we can better connect with our community. We work for the people, all of us in this chamber today, and having an honest and frank discussion with one another about how we can better get around our areas that we represent and talk to people and ensure that the public is frame of mind as much as possible. I'm really happy to have that discussion. That's what the workshop is.
Yeah.
This is just an endorsement to have a discussion, really.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy to have the discussion.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, I'll put the... Yeah, sorry, Councillor Faulkner, yeah. I'm the mover and Councillor Tully is the seconder.
I just recall at some point in the meeting that Councillor Tully moved and Councillor Jones seconded what was
That was the amendment.
potentially a foreshadowed motion because you didn't agree with
Yeah,
Tully's variation, and then the meeting went so that Councillor Tully actually had to foreshadow a new motion because you didn't agree with his amendment, and then the foreshadowed motion. Am I following you correctly here?
No, I think we're just having a bit more of a free-flowing discussion about how to word that amendment. So I think that's already been dealt with in the amendments there. So I think
If
we're
I
just
could
now...
clarify, I did move an amendment which
And then you
I
withdrew.
basically withdrew. Then I moved a second amendment which I withdrew. Neither of those were foreshadowed.
Yeah.
And then the third amendment was then put to the vote and carried, and that becomes the main motion.
Yes, it was carried unanimously. Thank you. I'll put this matter to the motion, the 4 recommendations in 15.7 to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 15.8, which is the procurement hire of waste collection of compaction vehicle. And we're looking here at, concern the hiring of one waste collection and compaction vehicle to assist with addressing waste collection service demand, where council is looking at entering a 12-month contract with, I think it's Butcher, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Municipal Proprietary Limited, with the option of a 6-month extension and a total contract value of up to $150,000. So there were 2 recommendations there for that. Would anyone like to ask the relevant council officer any questions? No? I will move this motion. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Sorry, I apologise. May I have the relevant council officer come to the lectern, please?
We're talking about a hiring fee.
Can we just wait till the relevant council officer gets to the lectern, please? Please just state your name and your position, please.
David McAllister, Resource Recovery Manager.
Thank you. Councillor Kunzman.
Just something I noticed just now, having read it previously, but we're talking about a hiring fee in A and a purchase price in B.
Purchase, but that's the contract hire price, so it's not a purchase price. We're not actually buying
Oh, I
the
see,
truck.
purchase of the contract.
Yes,
so
purchase
to
of the
speak.
contract.
Thank you,
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of the relevant council officer? No, thank you very much, Mr McAllister. Thank you. So I'll move this report. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Milligan, thank you. I'll open this up for discussion. I think the thing I thought was quite interesting in this report that our city has a growth of, we have an additional 75 new properties per week for our waste services to collect, which I thought was a very interesting figure. But yeah, that was probably my main comment on this. And any other discussion? No, I put this motion to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. I see it's unanimous and carried. Thank you very much. Move on to item 15.9, which is the monthly financial performance report. I guess for the first month of this financial year. The recommendation of the report on Council's finance performance for that period, the 31st of July, is submitted in accordance with the local government regulations and is considered and noted. Would anyone like to ask the relevant council officer any questions? No? In that case, I will move this report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jonick. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. And we move on to item 15.10, which is the 2021 asset revaluation. Would anyone like to speak to the relevant council officer on this particular item? No? In that case, I will move that recommendations A, B and C moved together. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Any discussion on asset revaluation as per the report? No? Thank you very much. I'll move that to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and carried. Moving on to the last one, 15.11, which is the Sub-Region Waste Alliance Recycling Modernisation Fund. May I ask the relevant council officer to come to the lectern here? And just a note for residents that this is also subject to a tender process at the moment, so there are probity concerns. We've all signed probity, so there's only a certain amount that I can, without going into closed session, so I'll ask you to be as open as you can without breaking any of those probity conditions. So your name and position, please.
David McAllister, Resource Recovery Manager.
Yep. So obviously with the Sub-Region Alliance, Mr McAllister, between Logan and Redlands, we're looking at how to deal with our waste going into the future. And an opportunity has presented itself. And what's the basis for your recommendation here?
Opportunity has presented itself to apply for grant funding through a joint state and federal grant program to assist with delivering a potential resource recovery facility for the Regional Alliance, as stated by the Mayor, as a partnership between Logan, Redlands and Ipswich. Substantial value is available under this funding program. For right now, we request of Council to endorse the submission of that grant submission via Logan City Council as the head of the Regional Alliance. Excuse me.
Thank you. And I note that at this stage there is no, what we hasn't stated where the location would be, whether it be Logan or Ipswich, so we've kept that quite open.
Yeah, and we've deliberately resolved in the resolution that any future business case must consider both an Ipswich and Logan solution, and that has been agreed to by both Logan and Redlands councils, who have both adopted this as of yesterday.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions of Mr McAllister? No, thank you very much, Mr McAllister. I'll move this report. Is there a seconder for this report? Thank you, Councillor Milligan. I'll open it up for discussion. There being no discussion, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour of recommendation A, B and C, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous and carried. Thank you. Item 16, notices of motion. There are none. 17, questions on notice. There are. Oh, sorry. On notices of motion. Yes. Oh, sorry, Councillor Allen. I didn't notice your hand.
Beg your pardon. I hereby advise of my intention to submit a notice of motion at the next council meeting. The notice of motion will be that Council follow the 2019 final determination of the electoral arrangement and divisional boundary review to conduct a mid-term review in 2022 to gauge residents' experiences and satisfaction with the multi-member arrangement and divisional boundaries. I'm happy to give it up. So that
Thank you. I'll just highlight to Council, and it's a condition that, with the Change Commission, that the review is done with the community anyway next year. But yes, I'll note that that notice of motion has been put forward. Any other notices of motion? In that case, I'll declare the meeting closed at 11:07. Thank you very much.